Baseball is finally back, and there's always something special about the beginning of a new season, especially when we're talking about the New York Yankees. Opening day always brings a different kind of energy, a mix of excitement, expectation, and curiosity about what this team is going to look like over the long season ahead. Fans wait months for this moment, and when it finally arrives, all you want to do is sit down, turn on the game, and watch your team take the field again. But lately, something has been making that simple experience way more complicated than it should be, and it is honestly becoming one of the biggest frustrations for baseball fans. It feels like every season now, there's a new platform, a new streaming service, or a new exclusive deal that makes it harder just to watch the games. Instead of turning on the television and finding the game on the usual network, now you have to check which app is broadcasting it, whether you have a subscription, whether the game is exclusive, and sometimes you realize you cannot even watch the game because it is locked behind another service you do not have. For the average fan, this is exhausting. People just want to follow their team, watch the games, and enjoy the season, but the number of platforms required is getting out of control. It has started to feel like you need multiple subscriptions just to keep up with one team throughout the season. And the reality is, this is probably not going to change anytime soon because there is too much money involved. Networks and streaming companies are willing to pay huge amounts of money to have exclusive rights to certain games, especially when it comes to big teams. When you talk about a team like the Yankees, you are talking about one of the most popular and most valuable brands in all of sports. Of course, companies want those games because they know fans will subscribe just to watch them. From a business perspective, it makes sense. But from the fan perspective, it makes the experience more complicated and sometimes even frustrating. But putting all of that aside, opening day always brings the focus back to what really matters, which is the game on the field. The matchup is interesting, and all eyes are going to be on the starting pitching, especially with the current situation in the rotation. This is where the season really starts to take shape, because early performances can set the tone for the first months of the year. Pitching is always one of the biggest factors in determining how far a team can go, and the Yankees are going to need strong performances from their starters, especially early in the season while the roster continues to adjust. One of the biggest storylines right now is the rotation and how the team is going to handle the absence of key players early in the season. That means other pitchers have to step up and take on bigger roles, and this is where you really find out what a team is made of. Some players perform well when there is no pressure, but when they're suddenly expected to lead the rotation or carry more innings, that is when you really see their true value. The Yankees are going to rely heavily on their pitching staff to keep them competitive while the roster continues to evolve over the first half of the season. At the same time, there are roster decisions that are already creating a lot of discussion among fans. The outfield situation is one of the most interesting areas to watch because there are young players pushing for opportunities and veterans who already have contracts and roster spots. This creates a situation where performance, contracts, and timing all collide. Young players might be performing well and showing they deserve a chance, but baseball is not always just about performance. Sometimes it is about contracts, roster flexibility, and long-term planning, and that could delay opportunities for younger players who are clearly talented and ready for the next level. This is something that happens every season. Prospects perform well, fans get excited, and everyone starts asking when they're going to be called up. But the organization has to balance development, service time, roster space, and financial decisions. It is not always as simple as just promoting the player who is playing the best at that moment. Sometimes the opportunity only comes when someone else struggles, gets injured, or when a roster move becomes necessary. That is why depth is so important over a long season, because opportunities always appear, but usually when you least expect them. So as the season begins, there are multiple storylines already forming. You have the excitement of opening day, the concerns about streaming and how fans are going to watch all the games, the pitching rotation adjusting to early season challenges, and the roster battles that could shape the team over the next few months. All of these things are happening at the same time, and that is what makes the beginning of a baseball season so interesting. There are so many unknowns, so many possibilities, and so many players who could become important pieces as the season moves forward. As the season moves forward, One of the most interesting things to watch will be how the team handles the outfield situation, because this is where competition, expectations, and reality all meet at the same time. There are veterans who are expected to perform because of their contracts and experience, and then there are younger players who are trying to prove that they deserve a permanent spot on the roster. This kind of internal competition can be very healthy for a team, but it can also create difficult decisions for the front office and the coaching staff as the months go by and performance starts to separate players. Young players often bring energy, power, and excitement, especially when they're coming off strong performances in spring training or in the minor leagues. Fans get excited when they see prospects hitting home runs, stealing bases, and showing confidence at the plate. It creates pressure on the organization because supporters want to see the future of the team now, not later. But from the team's perspective, development is not always a straight line, and sometimes giving a player more time in the minors can be better for their long-term growth than rushing them into the major leagues too quickly. At the same time, if a veteran player is struggling and not producing offensively or defensively, the conversation starts to change. The team then has to decide whether to continue giving that player opportunities to recover and find his form, or whether it is time to give a younger player a chance to make an impact. These decisions are never easy because they involve money, contracts, clubhouse dynamics, and long-term planning. But over a long season, performance usually decides everything. If someone is producing, they will play. If someone is not producing, eventually the team has to make a change. Another factor that always becomes important as the season progresses is depth. A baseball season is very long, and it is impossible to go through the entire season without injuries, slumps, and unexpected situations. That is why organizations invest so much in having strong minor league systems and versatile players who can step in when needed. Many times, the players who end up making a big difference in the middle of the season are not the biggest stars, but the players who step in during injuries or difficult stretches and keep the team competitive. Pitching depth is especially important because starting pitchers cannot carry the entire workload alone. The bullpen becomes extremely important, especially in close games, and teams that have reliable relievers usually have a big advantage over the course of the season. One bad bullpen stretch can cost a team several games in just a couple of weeks, and those games matter a lot when the standings start to get tight later in the season. Managing pitchers, innings, and rest becomes one of the most important jobs for the coaching staff. Offensively, consistency is always the key. Power is important. Home runs are exciting, but teams that score runs consistently usually rely on getting on base, working counts, and creating opportunities instead of waiting only for the big swing. When a lineup has balance, with players who can hit for average, players who can hit for power, and players who can get on base and create pressure, the offense becomes much more difficult to stop. Over a long season, consistency usually beats occasional explosive performances. As the months go by, standings begin to take shape, and the games start to feel more important. Early in the season, every team still believes they have a chance, but by the middle of the season, reality starts to set in. Teams either position themselves as contenders, or they start thinking about the future and making roster changes. That is when trades, call UPS, and roster moves start to become a big part of the story of the season. A single trade or a single young player promotion can completely change the direction of a team. And this is why the beginning of the season is so important, because it sets the tone for everything that comes after. A strong start can build confidence, create momentum, and give a team breathing room in the standings. A slow start can create pressure, frustration, and force the team to play catch up for the rest of the season. That is why every game at the beginning still matters, even though the season is very long, because momentum and confidence are very real factors in baseball. So as the season continues, all eyes will be on the rotation, the outfield competition, the development of young players, and how the team handles adversity when it inevitably arrives. Every season has ups and downs, winning streaks and losing streaks, surprises and disappointments. The teams that stay consistent, adapt to problems, and get contributions from different players throughout the roster are usually the teams that are still playing meaningful games when the season gets closer to the end. And that is ultimately the goal, to build a team that is not just talented on paper, but strong, deep, and consistent enough to compete for the entire season. As the pressure begins to build, individual performances start to carry even more weight, and that is where leadership becomes a major factor inside the clubhouse. Experienced players are expected to set the tone, not just with their numbers, but with their presence during difficult stretches. When the team goes through a rough patch, it is not only about adjusting mechanics or lineups, it is also about mentality, focus, and the ability to stay locked in over a very long season. That is something that separates good teams from great ones, the ability to respond when things are not going your way. Another element that cannot be ignored is how the team performs in key matchups against strong opponents. Over the course of the season, there are stretches where the level of competition rises, and those games often feel like early tests of what the team is really capable of. Facing quality pitching, disciplined lineups, and well-balanced teams forces adjustments and exposes weaknesses. These are the moments where teams either adapt and grow stronger or struggle to keep up. Watching how the Yankees respond in these situations will say a lot about their true potential as the season unfolds. Defense is another area that quietly plays a huge role in the outcome of games, even if it does not always get the same attention as hitting or pitching. A well-timed defensive play can completely change the momentum of a game, while a mistake in the field can quickly put the team in a difficult position. Over a full season, those small moments add up, and teams that play clean, consistent defense often give themselves a better chance to win close games. It is not always about the spectacular plays, but about making the routine plays every single night. And then there's the mental grind of the season itself, something that every player has to deal with at some point. Baseball is a sport of failure, and even the best players go through slumps where nothing seems to go right. The ability to stay confident, trust your preparation, and continue competing at a high level is essential. Teams that manage to stay mentally strong, support each other, and maintain their focus over time are the ones that find ways to push through adversity and stay in the race when it matters most. But before we continue, please remember to join our channel and give this video a like. Your support allows us to keep bringing you the latest news about the New York Yankees. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments. In a move that is already sending shockwaves through the baseball world, whispers are growing louder that a generational talent could be on his way to the Bronx. Sources close to the situation suggest that Mike Trout has accepted a 3-season proposal that would see him wearing the iconic pinstripes, marking what could be one of the most dramatic shifts in recent Major League Baseball history. While nothing has been officially confirmed, insiders describe the negotiations as advanced and unexpectedly swift, hinting that both sides found common ground faster than anticipated. The New York Yankees, long associated with blockbuster moves and superstar acquisitions, appear poised to make another statement signing, one that could redefine the balance of power across the league. For years, Trout has been synonymous with excellence, consistency, and loyalty. The idea of him leaving his longtime home seemed almost unthinkable, which is precisely why these rumors have ignited such intense debate. Some around the league believe the timing makes sense, pointing to a growing desire within the organization to maximize its competitive window with proven elite talent. Clubhouse dynamics, financial flexibility, and long-term strategy are all being scrutinized as analysts attempt to piece together how such a deal could materialize. A 3-year structure suggests a calculated risk rather than a full rebuild commitment, giving the Yankees a chance to capitalize on Trout's elite performance while maintaining future adaptability. Fans, meanwhile, are divided between excitement and disbelief. The thought of Trout stepping into Yankee Stadium as a home player carries enormous implications, not just for ticket sales and media buzz, but for the psychological edge it could give the team in high-stakes moments. Until an official announcement is made, the baseball world remains on edge, watching closely as speculation continues to build. If the rumors prove true, this could become one of the defining narratives of the season, a move that blends legacy, ambition, and the ever-present allure of New York's grand stage. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the New York Yankees, please subscribe to our channel and give us a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.